Hello, writers. Welcome to Vocab Enrichment. This week's example story. Flar darted along the path, trying to escape his enemies. But all at once he staggered, lost his footing, and slipped down a hillside of gravel. All around him larger rocks rolled, and dust rose behind him like a cloak. Flar tried to keep his wits about him, even as the rocks made cruel slashes and bruises on his arms and legs. He saw a crevice at the bottom of the hill. It wasn't wide, but it was so deep he couldn't see the bottom. Flar coiled his legs for the spring. There he was at the edge. He launched. Our first word, dart, is a verb to move or throw quickly. You can see Sonic here running like crazy. Sonic darts from one place to another. He never just walks. He's always racing or darting or shooting. Connections. What would you describe as darting from tree to tree? Maybe a squirrel could dart along the ground from one tree to the next. Or maybe a kid playing tag could be darting from tree to tree. Or how about darting among the shadows? There you have a creature who's moving really fast, but staying in the shadowy places in the forest, or maybe in the city. Maybe a thief would dart among the shadows of the city, or maybe a leopard would be darting among the shadows to chase its prey. Slip, verb to move by sliding, especially by accident. Whoops, this guy did not see the wet floor and he slipped and he had a huge fall. What's the difference between slip and stagger? Last week we had that word stagger, which was to kind of lose your balance, to have a false step. And it's basically in the cause of the movement. Stagger could be caused by hitting your foot against a rock or by just being tired or by not having good balance in the first place. If you slip, it's usually because the ground underneath is slippery or slidey. So like in the example story, Flar was on the gravel of the hillside, and that's what caused his feet to slip out from under him. Wits, your senses, awareness, or consciousness. The phrase that you often hear is you keep your wits about you. For example, when is it especially important to keep your wits about you? If you're biking in the city, you really need to have your wits about you. You have to be aware of everything going on. You have to be looking left and right and always knowing if something is coming at you. Otherwise, it could get really dangerous. So that's one example. Another example is when you're playing sports, the coaches will say like, "Hey, eyes up," or "head in the game," because they want you to be aware of what's going on around you. Cruel, adjective characterized by severe pain and suffering, especially if caused deliberately. So you can see in the picture, this girl is being kind to the puppies here. This boy is being cruel because he's taking a stick and hitting the dog on purpose. We do not do that. What are some things that are cruel to do to your friends? It might be cruel to take your friend's lunch and eat it right in front of their face so that they watch you. It might be cruel to talk behind your friend's back and all of your friends start making fun of them. Something that causes pain, and especially if you're causing it deliberately, that is cruel. Coil, something rounded into a spiral or many spirals. This rope is in a nice coil here. And you often find rope in coils, you often find like wire, and also snakes or anything with a long tail, because the snake is coils itself around, and it's especially dangerous when it's coiled because it's going to use that springy shape to be able to leap out and strike at something. Let's end with our example story one more time. Flar darted along the path, trying to escape his enemies. But all at once he staggered, lost his footing, and slipped down a hillside of gravel. All around him, larger rocks rolled, and dust rose behind him like a cloak. Flar tried to keep his wits about him, even as the rocks made cruel slashes and bruises on his arms and legs. He saw a crevice at the bottom of the hill. It wasn't wide, but it was so deep he couldn't see the bottom. Flar coiled his legs for the spring. There he was at the edge. He launched.